Okay.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Flint. Good morning to those of you here in our sanctuary, and also to those who are viewing us online. Welcome, and thank you for being with us. My name is Jim Newtown. I'm your worship associate this morning. We are an inclusive church that welcomes everyone, regardless of their income, education, sexuality. If you are searching for a church that believes the most important things are love, the quest of justice, and the use of reason, then our congregation may be right for you. We'd also like to acknowledge that we stand on the traditional lands of the Council of Three Fires and the Anishinaabe peoples who were the indigenous inhabitants of Michigan. Our congregation supports indigenous-led organizations and grassroots change movements, and we encourage others to do so as well. We also support indigenous-led campaigns in their quest to have carefully chosen lands returned to them. A couple of weeks ago on Indigenous Peoples Day, I had the opportunity to go to an event in Mount Pleasant and stop by the Zebawing Museum in Mount Pleasant. If you have a chance, I would encourage you to do so. If you would like more information about Unitarian Universalism or our congregation, please feel free to contact one of our ministers at our office, and that contact information can be found at uuflint.org. Yes, I did manage to get these screwed up. Okay. Yep, here we go. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together. And we'll now have a prelude.
Chalice. Chalice lighting.
I lit it. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. The covenant. I'm sorry. Yes, that was not on my, I don't think of that. Yes, that's usually part of our, chalice lighting / covenant. Sorry, my fault. With me, please, if you wish. Recognizing the richness of diversity, the beauty and wonder of shared worship, and the transforming power of love and service, we gather as a sacred, intentional community to freely seek knowledge and truth, to celebrate the fullness of life, and by our actions to increase goodness and justice. come in from the crisp morning air outside. Come in wearing the autumn sunlight on your face. Come carrying the turning of the seasons in your heart. Whatever and however the greatness of life is speaking to you now, you are welcome here in our circle of friends. Today, science teacher and environmentalist activist Dennis Slotnick invites us to explore the science of how perfectly sane humans often perceive the world so very differently. From this new perspective, we get fresh insights into UU principles, such as the responsible search for truth and meaning, and the inherent worth and dignity of all people, no matter how they see the world. Dennis was raised Unitarian Universalist in the Farmington, Michigan church. After receiving his Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Michigan, he taught high school biology and environmental sciences for 30 years. He also holds a master's degree in science education and presently lives in Ohio, where he is politically active with Heath Care for All and the Climate Reality Project. We would now like to spend a few minutes in meditation. And afterwards, if you would wish, you may light a candle of joy or sorrow or concern. And also at the back, you may write it down in a log if you wish to share that with the congregation. In this time of meditation, may you rest in the grace of the world and be free. In weakness, may you sense the strength of the eternal hills and rest in the grace of the world. In failure, may you be upheld like the buoyancy of water and rest in the grace of the world. In limitation, may you remember that the choices may be as great as the expanse of the sky and rest in the grace of the world. In security, may you feel the solid earth beneath your feet and rest in the grace of the world. In despair, may you hear the joy in birds singing and rest in the grace of the world. In fear, may you feel the warmth of the sun and rest in the grace of the world. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world and am free. So be it. And now our speaker for today, Dennis Slotnick. Good morning, everyone. I'm so pleased to be back here. 2 weeks ago, I had a marvelous introduction to Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Flint. And I'm especially taken by the warmth and the hospitality I feel in the people I've met. Especially thank you, Susan, who's helped organize all the details in this presentation. I was moved 2 weeks ago when there was a presentation of the legacy of each of the great people who have contributed and made this church. And I think that it's really wonderful that you take a major part of your service and honor each of those of our past. It's a beautiful thing. I appreciate that legacy. Thank you for allowing me to be here to share some of my insights and my comments about a book I recently read that can change the way we perceive ourselves because it investigates the way animals perceive the world. And I'm going to do a little bit of poetry and some great music, thanks to Dan, and we've thought through this carefully. I'd like to begin with a quote from Buddha, just one of the most ancient seers. And his comment reflects on how we interpret the world. Said, in the sky, there's no distinction between east and west. It's just in the human mind we create that distinction. And then we believe it to be true. There's a gentleman who teaches, a professor at the University of the South in Tennessee. And he spends a great deal of time in nature and journaling about it. And his observation of the chickadee is especially telling. Chickadee's eyes perceive colors differently than mine. I view with eyes that are equipped with 3 color sensors. Chickadees have 4 combinations of color sensors. Chickadees have extra color receptors that we do not have. Their 4 primary colors give not 4 combinations, but 11 combinations of colors. He goes on to say that chickadees have a little lens in their eye that's made of oil, and it makes the colors more clear than you and I perceive colors. So he's one of the scientists that I respect and regard, and it's one of the scientists that Ed Young, among many, has documented a brave new world of perception. In his book, Ed Young describes in exquisite scientific detail and literary excellence the way animals perceive the world, and it's suggesting to us that human perception is so limited. I offer this morning the idea of immensity, based on the idea that our perceptions as we see, the 5 senses that we use, are actually limited, and that the universe is much more vast than what we perceive.
Here's a premise. Here's a premise that I challenge you with. Let me get a little bit caught up on my technology here. I'm going to see if our slides are working, or are they going backwards? I'm going to get caught up here a little bit with my... Oh, I'm upside down this morning. It invert my image. I get it. Okay. So today is, thank you. There's one of the champions, Thor, came, the voice from above. Right? The presentation is about seeing the unseen and hearing the unheard. And the book we're looking at is Ed Young's book that has just come out 2 years ago as Pulitzer Prize winner. And in it, he describes how human perceptions create our worldview. In other words, we can only understand the world based on our perceptions. That's the premise. And if our perceptions are narrowed, what does that tell us about our worldview and our judgments and our values and the way we relate with others, and including the other organisms in the planet? If indeed then that premise is true, if our perceptions are off, we have to look again at our judgments and our values and our prejudgments. And right? That's the premise I'd like to present to you today. Now, why it matters is because in the UU principle, we are on a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. In fact, I can take the list a little bit deeper, if you don't mind. Where am I? I'm off the screen. Oh, yeah, let's see. I'm on the screen. If we choose the word free to refer to free to shed our misunderstandings, if we use the word responsible, we must, in my bias, be responsibly verifying what we know. And I use science as a tool. If we search for truth, then we have to ask, are perceptions valid? And what do we mean when we perceive something? And do animals and plants mean the same thing when they perceive something? That's the question. So I think it's very timely and appropriate that we take on this principle, the UU principle. Just what the truth is, I can't say more. If I hold up this card, if I talk out this far away, you hear me pretty well? Yeah. Picked up by the video, I hope. This card appears red to many of us, yes? Mm-hmm. There are some people that this card is not red. They have color in a different spectrum than we see. And if you were close to it, you'd say, that's not red, there's writing on there. You may not see it where you are. But that idea of seeing something and then making a judgment about it is called an umwelt. Now, an umwelt is a term that comes back from the ancient times, actually ancient biologically. In 1909, Jacob Exkull from Germany said that animals perceive the world like a garden is perceived from the house looking through a window. In other words, he said the body is a house and each house has its own windows. Is that working well?
Talk to it like it's person.
Yeah, is it picking up? I hope on the... on the people who are not here at the virtual. Okay, and so he says an umwelt is this perception we get of the garden by looking through a window in the house. A wise man who knew that the garden is much more expansive than what you can see through the window, right? Okay, so umwelt is an important term in biology and is a center point to our talk today. This is an example of an umwelt. Don't hear anything, right? I don't even hear that. I presume it's a tuning fork, yes? We would presume that it makes some sound. It does. From one umwelt, we don't hear it. From another, it's as loud as can be. Okay? That's an example of umwelt. Here's another one that's very much similar in this book. There are insects that rub their legs together, and to you and I, there'd be no sound. If we take a microphone and put that microphone on the blade of grass that the insect is standing on, so the insect is using the blade of grass as an amplifier, a tuning box, a resonating box, okay? This is umwelt, where we do not understand, we can't even imagine what there is there in a sound unless we have the right sensory connection. That's a profound premise. Let me quote from Ed Young's book a little bit. We used to think, as human beings, that animals do not see color. I was kind of raised that way, thinking animals don't see color. And if they do see color, it's different colors than us. I see a few nods, like people are saying, yeah, that was what we thought. Then in 1880, John Lovelock proved that ants can see ultraviolet light, and that the world of ant seeing is different from ours. Right? Perception, different. The world they see is different, okay? 50 years later, we found out that bees and minnows can also see ultraviolet light. Ultra because it's outside of what we see. So the narrative had to shift. Okay, so some animals see colors, but that must be a pretty rare thing for animals to see colors. Another half century later, 1980, I was 27 years old when researchers showed that birds, reptiles, fish, and insects can see ultraviolet light because they have receptive photoreceptors in those ranges. The narrative had to change. So scientists now said, okay, UV vision exists in many groups of animals, but not in mammals. Still wrong. Gerald Jacobs and Jay Nitz showed that mice and rats and gerbils have a short cone that is tuned to ultraviolet. Okay, fine. Mammals can have ultraviolet vision, but only the little mammals. You see how we perceive things? And then, like, bats and rodents. And later on we found ferrets and other mammals can see ultraviolet light also. The narrative has to change again. Our worldview, our perception is based on what we perceive. Yes? Okay. I would like to show you what the world looks like to us as this. I might have to have the right angle on here. We're looking at this black-eyed Susan on the left. We see a colored flower that we normally see. The same exact flower to a bee would be something like the one on the right, a bullseye. Of course, the scientists made that up. because the scientist doesn't really know what bees see in the ultraviolet range. So they just made it black. They see a target, we see a beautiful flower. Different umlauts for the same object. Make some sense? Follow? Yeah. Cool. So what about dogs? This is Ed Young's pet dog, and if you want a closer view of this, and if you want to take a look at the book itself, I can pass this around. In the book is marvelous illustrations and drawings, but this particular drawing has what the dog sees and what you and I see. Dogs have just two senses for color. They do see color, but different than us. And we have we have red. So how would this look like if you were a dog? And if you were a person? And if you were something other? I'm missing a cue here. So I came up with a funny little contraption. How's that? If I stand next to this, you can hear? Yeah. This is just a homemade version of what dogs can see. They see blue and they see yellow. And they see some colors in between. They see some gradation. They see some yellows that are faint yellow to white, and they see some grays. Because they only have two receptors, blue and yellow, in their eyes. And they can combine about 10, let's say 10 different colors in that range. And it works for them perfectly well. We have blue, we have yellow, and we have red. And at this point, I'm going to ask a little bit of help from somebody. This is a homemade contraption to a country. And this will show red is. Okay, I want to make sure. Thank you. Your name is?
Bonnie.
Bonnie?
Bonnie.
Bonnie, thank you, Bonnie, for helping with this color triangle. Now, you and I see colors of red, yellow, and blue, and we see all the ones in between, including some of the ones that are in between in here, yes? Okay, well, let's do a little mathematics for the fun of it. Dogs see 10 different colors. We see 10 from this range and 10 from this range. So of those 10 that they see, we see 10 times 10 times 10. We're seeing 1,000 colors where dogs see only 10. Because we have 3 color receptors. So Bonnie, hang in there. I have one more thing for you to hold it, just like that. If we had 4 color receptors, like bees and reptiles and ferrets and mice, we would be seeing a world that's unseen. We would see, and I don't know if you people in video land can see what's going on here, because this may be, it's translucent to us. To a bird, these are very visible. You see how that is on our window. We use these to deflect against the bird hitting themselves against the window. It's so obvious to them that there's something there. It's so obvious that they have color range from the UV light into the yellow, UV light into the red. This hook should be attached somewhere else. This hook should be attached down here. And they can see colors UV to blue as well. You and I can't see those. What does that mean, though? A bird then now can see, oh, you're going to fix that.
I'm going to try.
Fine. The bird can see 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. Birds and fish see 1,000,000 different colors where we only see 1,000. What would their umwelt be? This is an immense universe because we're not perceiving it all. You follow what's going on? This is just one of the senses, the sense of sight. Okay. To me, this is humbling. You know, if an insect can see 1,000,000 colors and I'm restricted to 1,000, what are we missing? Thank you, Bonnie.
You're very welcome.
I'm just going to leave this right here as a reminder of. Okay, so I can improve on this a little bit. Pardon me, the homemade version. It's kind of what inventive science is about. I invented it, by the way. It's a word to be repeated thing. So my clicker's somewhere else. So here's what happens. We have to ask ourselves, okay, what are we missing? And the answer is, well, let's take a look at the science of the visible spectrum. And what we notice is that there's radio and microwave and infrared. And the visible spectrum, it should say human visible spectrum, shouldn't it? Human visible spectrum, because in the ultraviolet, there's 3 segments longer of ultraviolet light. In fact, many organisms have 2 receptors for ultraviolet light, probably UVB and UVA, 2 different kinds of UV light. So, beyond tetrachromats. Okay, so we've got a piece of the reality, right? A slim sliver of the range of electromagnetic energy that's out there. How about sound? How about sound? Human beings are pretty good with sound, actually. All this orange section is human being hearing. Pretty darn good. But nowhere near what dolphins are doing. Nowhere near what cats and dogs can hear. If you look at this, we're at about 20,000. Good human hearing range. 20, 25, maybe in a squeak, 26. That's right. Dolphins are out at 150,000 hertz. That's nearly 6 times higher frequencies than we can hear. On a rhythmic scale, right? We only know that's because of instruments. This is an immense world. If we're only seeing this, hearing this much of it, well, let's bring it down to the world of bird calls and bird songs. I'm not sure exactly how to play this, but maybe some little help from Ray. Listen for, if we could, to the winter wren. It's the song of the winter wren. It's very closely related to the house wren that we have here. We've got winter wrens here too. This is the picture of what it would look like if we could put it 100 notes in 7 seconds. Incredibly fast. Their sound world is so fast that to us it's lovely, but it's a squeak. So there's a biologist who has taken this and reduced it down to the human hearing range. He's recorded the winter wren and slowed it down about 15 times. Let's listen to Rick Hamlin as he plays a recorded winter wren. Oh. Oh, by the way, before we do that, sorry. This is what, in black and white, the winter wren looks like. Our ears can't hear this kind of complexity that we can see. And those who are in music, Jennifer and Dan, can probably recognize that there's a fundamental and some harmonics. All of this in 7 seconds. Let's hear what it looks like. Let's hear what it sounds like when it's slowed down into the human hearing range.
There's more to it than meets the eye. When it comes to the song of the winter wren, there's more to it than initially meets the ear. My name is Rich Hanlon, and for this segment of My Wild Neighbors, I welcome you to the northern reaches of the Adirondack Park in New York State. Here we stand in a spruce fir forest with mossy understory and a creek nearby. This is typical habitat of a winter wren. First, let's take a look at a clip of a winter wren singing that I recently captured at Round Top Park in Athens, Pennsylvania. You probably don't need me to tell you that that is a highly complex song for any bird. The fact is that the winter wren has a talent for rattling off over 100 notes in just 7 seconds. Fortunately, I was able to record the songs of 2 winter wrens in the northern reaches of the Adirondack Park today, and I would like to play them for you now, but here's the catch. We're going to listen to the song of the winter wren in slow motion together, so you can get a full appreciation for every one of the notes that the winter wren produces in this highly complex song. Let's give it a listen. When it comes, you've heard the saying, there's more.
I'm looking at myself, reflections of my mind. It's just the kind of day to leave myself behind. So gently swaying in this fairyland of love. If you just come with me and see the beauty of.
Well, one thing we're sure of. There are layers and layers of complexity in this universe, and it is truly immense. If each species has its own umwelt, who are we to judge whether it's better or worse or different? It may even place human beings and our self-concept onto a different place than on top or out front or the king of the castle. The UU principle suggests that we need to shed our misunderstandings, shed our suggestions that we are locked into our notions, take a responsible approach by gathering as much information and data about how other organisms perceive the world and give us a hint and a clue about what's really out there or in here, and gather fresh new meaning and look again at our own judgments and prejudgments, understanding that there are many umwelts yet to be understood. Good nights. I offer this verse out of the Moody Blues when they were saying, what happens at night? What happens when we have our ignorance of a given unwell? They say this. Cold-hearted orb that rules the night removes the colors from our sight. Red is gray and yellow is white. We decide which is right and which is an illusion. Pinprick holes in a colorless sky and let insipid figures of light pass by. The mighty light of 10,000 suns challenges infinity and is soon gone. Nighttime to some, a brief interlude. To others, the fair of solitude. Brave Helios, wake up your steeds. Bring the warmth the countryside needs. I conclude.
Before you learn to fly, mama, it ain't no lie. Before you learn to fall, learn how to fly. 'Cause Lord, it's the same old story ever since the world began. Everybody's got the run for glory. Nobody stop and scrutinize the plan. Nobody stop and scrutinize the plan. You got to learn how to fall before you learn to fly. Mama, it ain't no lie. Before you learn to fly, learn how to fall.
Let there be an offering to sustain and strengthen this place, which is sacred to so many of us, a community of memory and of hope, for we are now the keepers of the dream. Any contributions of time, money, or effort are always welcome. There are baskets on the table near the exit. You may drop those as you leave. There's also available online and a QR code on the back of your order of service if you wish to use that. Okay. So we'll do that at the very end, if you're willing to do that. Yeah. Okay. So we now will extinguish the chalice. We extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Closing words are by Wendell Berry. Geese appear high over us, pass and the sky closes, abandoned as in love or sleep, holds them to their way, clear in the ancient faith. What we need is here, and we pray not for new earth or heaven, but to be quiet in heart and in eye clear. What we need is here.